The dropship bucked in the storm, and the whole squad laughed on impact. Captain Mara Voss gripped the jump rail and kept her face hard. Lieutenant Jax Rourke laughed too loud, then checked his rifle twice. Specialist Nia Cade laughed in quick bursts while tightening her med straps. Sergeant Hale Bennett laughed once like a cough and pulled up the holo map. "If I stop laughing, I start shaking," Jax said. "Then keep laughing and keep moving," Mara said. "Humans laugh under stress," Nia said. "It is either that or we freeze." Hale stabbed a finger at the map. Relay Tower in the old city, dead center. The tower was a black needle inside a shimmering dome, calling something from orbit. 3 days ago, the Keth landed, burned coastal guns, and raised the relay in hours. They did it silent. No cheers, no fear noise, just metal and motion. Command wanted the relay dead before a fleet answer arrived. Mara wanted her team alive, and those goals did not always match. The pilot cut in. "Approach in 2 minutes, 40 seconds, red light soon." Jax laughed again. 2 minutes, 40 seconds to make history. Love it. Mara looked at him. Save the jokes for after extraction. Hale clipped his tether. After extraction, we drink in silence. Nia shook her head, still smiling. No one here can do silence. The cabin lights flipped red, and rain hammered the hull like fists. "Door in 10 seconds, the pilot said. The bay doors split open, and wind screamed into the cabin. Below, the storm dome flickered over a drowned city, streets shining like oil. Mara stepped to the edge and felt her stomach lift. Her suit timer read 6 minutes until the relay completed another pulse cycle. She forced her breathing steady and raised her hand. "On my mark," Mara said. Hale counted down with his fingers, and Jax laughed on each beat. "Mark," Mara said. They jumped into black air and falling rain. Thrusters caught, and the dome rushed up like glass. Static washed Mara's visor for a blink. Then the city snapped into focus. They hit a rooftop in a splash, boots clanging, water running off broken panels. Mara rolled to cover and aimed down the stairwell mouth. "Clear," Hale said, voice calm, a faint chuckle behind it. Nia scanned the skyline and laughed once in relief. "I have the relay signature." Jax rubbed his knee and laughed through a wince. "My legs hate gravity." "Move," Mara said. They sprinted roof to roof, using antenna frames as low cover. 3 Keth scouts glided along a broken sky bridge, armor wet and dark. The Keth did not laugh, did not shout, did not even breathe loud. Mara fired a tight burst into the lead scout's crest. Sparks flashed and the scout staggered, sensors dimming. Hale tossed a concussive puck that slammed the bridge with a hollow boom. One scout folded, joints failing, and slid into the flooded street below. The second scout hissed and unfolded a needle gun. Jax laughed and fired first, stitching rounds into its shoulder plate. Nia snapped a dart into the exposed joint, and the scout dropped hard. The third scout vanished into shadows between towers, too fast to track. "Leave it," Mara said. "We are late already." They dropped into a stairwell that smelled like rust and seawater. At street level, water reached their thighs and hid debris like teeth. A Keth drone drifted overhead, a black disk with a red eye slit. Jax laughed and lobbed a flash sphere without waiting for orders. White light burst, and the drone spun into a building wall and died. Mara grabbed Jax's shoulder. "Do that again without a call, and I end you." Jax kept grinning. "Copy, Captain." They reached a wide plaza where statues stood half submerged like drowning men. The relay tower rose from the center, panels shifting like living armor. A beam of dark light stabbed upward, making the dome ripple. Nia whispered a laugh that sounded wrong. That is the uplink. Hale checked charges. We punch through the ring, plant the core, run. Overwatch crackled in Mara's ear. You have 6 minutes, then we pull air support. Jax laughed, and it came out sharp. 6 minutes is an insult. Mara studied the sentry nodes around the base, black pylons turning like heads. A hidden door opened at the tower base like an eyelid. Something larger stepped out, marked with pale lines that glowed through rain. Hale's chuckle faded. Commander class. The commander lifted its crest toward their monument cover, precise and certain. Then it made a sound that was not a hiss. It mimicked human laughter, perfectly timed, echoing across the flooded plaza. Every sentry node turned toward Mara's position at once. Mara raised her hand to signal the breach and felt her pulse spike. Jax stopped laughing entirely, and the silence was louder than gunfire. Summary. Captain Mara Voss and her squad breached the storm dome over the drowned city to destroy the Keth relay tower. They fought Keth scouts on the rooftops and pushed through flooded streets under drone patrols. At the tower plaza, they found sentry nodes and a hidden door opening at the base. A commander-class Keth appeared and mimicked human laughter, then aimed the entire defense ring at them. Mara raised her hand to signal the breach as the squad's laughter died into sudden silence. Mara dropped her hand into a slicing signal, and the squad exploded from cover. Hale sprinted first, laughing once like a trigger pull, and hurled 2 charges toward the nearest sentry node. The charges stuck to black metal and blew outward in a tight cone of sparks. One node toppled, its slit eye going dark, and the ring stuttered. Nia ran low and fast through knee-deep water, laugh trembling in her throat, and slid behind a statue base. She popped a jammer puck, and the plaza sound turned thin, like someone had pulled the air out. Jax dashed right, laughing again on purpose, and fired at the second node to draw its aim. The node answered with a slicing beam that carved the monument above Mara's head into dust. Mara rolled through the spray and fired at the commander's crest. The rounds pinged off, then one caught a glowing line and the commander flinched. It did not hiss. It laughed again, and the timing was wrong, like a recording played with perfect cruelty. Hale shouted over comms. Left side is open. Move. Move. Mara sprinted through the gap, boots splashing, suit servos whining. The tower base loomed, skin shifting, and the open door breathed faint heat into the rain. Inside, a corridor angled down, smooth as poured glass, lit by pulsing seams. Nia slid in behind Mara and laughed in short bursts. I hate aliens that learn. Jax followed, firing backward, his laugh cracking as beams hissed past his shoulder. Hale brought up the rear, slamming a final charge onto the threshold. The blast collapsed the doorway into a jagged choke point and bought them seconds. They ran down the corridor as the tower heartbeat pulsed under their feet. At a junction, the corridor split into 3 veins, each marked by shifting symbols. Nia knelt and pressed her scanner to the wall, laughing once in relief. Center path is the core line. They took the center, and the air turned colder, dry, and metallic. A chamber opened like a hollow ribcage with black pillars and cables hanging like wet vines. In the middle sat the relay core, a spinning ring around a dark sphere, humming with heavy force. Jax breathed out a laugh. That is the ugliest generator I have ever seen. Plant it, Mara said. Hale unclipped the core charge pack and snapped clamps onto exposed ribs under the spinning ring. Nia worked a side console, laugh gone, Focus hard while Mara covered the entrances. The commander's broken laughter echoed down the corridor as gates slammed shut behind them. Hale said, 2 minutes if it stays still, and reached for the arming handle. A Keth sentinel slid in, needles and blade ready, and the fight turned into close-range chaos. A freezing needle round hit Hale's shoulder plate, and ice crawled across his armor. The dark sphere pulsed, and the chamber lurched, flipping gravity and pulling water up the walls. Hale armed the charge as the dome above thinned, and a huge shadow moved beyond the star slice. Mara signaled climb toward the roof slit as the tower itself began to laugh from every direction. The ceiling slit widened, and rain fell inward, like the sky was leaking through a wound. Mara fired her grapnel into a seam and hauled herself up as the floor tilted under her boots. Nia clipped on behind, laughing once in panic, when the dark sphere below tugged water up the walls. Jax followed, forcing a laugh that sounded like a cough, then started shooting at shapes crawling along the shell. Keth climbers flowed toward them upside down, silent and fast, claws sparking on metal. Hale covered the rear, laughing through pain as he shook off the creeping ice in his shoulder plate. Mara pulled the squad onto a slick service catwalk and sprinted toward the beam chamber above. The commander's mimic laughter chased them through vents and ribs, as if the tower itself was speaking. A hatch resisted, then popped, and Mara dragged herself into a circular room around the beam aperture. Stars showed through thinning dome skin, and a massive shadow hung outside, too large to be debris. Nia stared up and let out a broken laugh. The fleet is already here. Jax raised his rifle at the sky and stopped laughing completely. Hale slammed the hatch bar shut and looked at Mara. No exit except that hole. A wall panel unfolded, and the commander stepped in, pale lines glowing brighter in the beam light. It laughed once, perfectly human, then went still, as if waiting for a reply. Mara aimed at its crest and felt the tower shudder as the armed charge deep below ran toward detonation. The commander lifted an arm toward the control spines, and the beam widened, roaring like a storm inside a tunnel. Cold starlight poured in as the dome peeled open another fraction, and wind clawed at the squad's suits. Outside, something detached from the shadow ship and dropped toward the opening like a falling spear. Summary. Captain Mara Voss led her squad into the Keth relay tower under a failing storm dome. The relay core proved to be a gravity warping engine, not just a signal device. A Keth commander learned human laughter and used it as psychological pressure. The squad armed a core charge deep inside the tower as the enemy fleet arrived. They climbed toward the beam chamber with no clear extraction and time collapsing. The beam chamber shook as wind screamed through the widening aperture. Mara planted her boots and leaned into the pull, muscles screaming under suit load. Jax hooked a cable around a rib and laughed once to steady his breathing. Nia crawled toward a control spine, fingers slipping on condensation. Hale braced the hatch bar and laughed through clenched teeth as the metal warped. The commander stepped closer, calm, precise, its mimic laugh gone. It tilted its crest toward the falling spear outside, tracking its descent. The spear burned brighter as it cut through thinning dome skin. Overwatch shouted through broken comms, voice stretched and distorted by interference. Impact in under 1 minute, the voice said. Mara snapped her gaze back to the commander and fired. The round struck glowing lines and finally bit, tearing fragments loose. The commander staggered but did not fall, balance adjusting instantly. It raised its arm and the control spines flared. Gravity surged and the floor tilted toward the aperture. Nia screamed a laugh as she slid, catching a cable at the last second. Jax lunged and grabbed her harness, boots scraping sparks. Hale let go of the hatch and slid hard, slamming into Mara's side. The hatch bar tore free and vanished upward into the wind. The beam roared louder, shaking teeth and bone. Mara shouted orders that were swallowed by the noise. She pointed, slashed the air, and the squad moved on instinct. Nia slammed her tool into the nearest control spine and overrode the casing. The spine split open and light poured out like molten glass. The commander hissed for the first time, a thin metallic sound. It lunged, blade arm unfolding in a blur. Jax laughed and fired point blank, driving it back a step. Hale tackled the commander from the side, armor crashing into armor. They skidded across the floor toward the aperture, wind clawing at them. Mara ran after them, rifle clanging uselessly against her chest. The falling spear outside crossed the aperture threshold. Its surface unfolded, revealing thrusters and weapon vanes. Nia screamed a warning that came out as laughter. The spear fired. The beam chamber filled with white force and ripping sound. Mara felt weight vanish and then return doubled. She slammed into a rib and tasted blood. Jack spun through the air, cable snapping tight and stopping his flight. Hale and the commander vanished through the aperture together. For a heartbeat, nothing but wind and light remained. Then Hale's laughter came back through comms, distorted but alive. "I am still here," Hale said. Mara forced herself upright and crawled to the edge. Outside, Hale clung to the commander, both tumbling along the tower exterior. The spear arched away, preparing another pass. Nia dragged herself beside Mara and stared out. The dome peeled wider, Starfield blazing cold and sharp. The dark fleet ship loomed beyond, massive and patient. Overwatch broke in again, frantic. "Charge signal detected. Detonation window collapsing," the voice said. Mara checked her HUD and saw the timer stutter. The gravity core was fighting the charge, compressing time around it. Nia slapped the open spine again and laughed in frustration. "It is locking itself, feeding on the countdown," she said. Jax crawled up and looked down at the chaos below. The dark sphere far beneath pulsed faster, swallowing debris and light. Mara made a decision without speaking. She clipped her cable to a rib and jumped through the aperture. The wind tore at her as the tower exterior rushed past. Stars wheeled overhead as gravity shifted again. She caught Hale's arm and locked their suits together. The commander twisted between them, strength unnatural. It laughed, soft and human, directly into Mara's audio feed. Mara drove her knife into its crest seam and twisted. The laugh cut off mid-sound. The commander convulsed and went limp. Hale shoved the body away and whooped a broken laugh. The spear turned back toward them, weapon vanes glowing. Mara kicked off the tower shell and fired her thrusters. They spun away just as the spear sliced past, missing by meters. Below them, the tower shuddered from its core outward. Cracks raced up the shell like lightning frozen in metal. Inside, the charge finally broke free of the gravity lock. Nia saw the spike on her display and screamed. "Detonation in seconds," she shouted. Jax leapt through the aperture, cable snapping after him. Nia followed, barely clearing the edge as the beam collapsed inward. The beam chamber imploded, light folding into itself. Mara hauled Hale toward the squad as the tower screamed. The dark sphere detonated without flame, space bending inward. The relay tower folded like paper crushed by invisible hands. Mara felt the pull and fought it, thrusters screaming. Overwatch yelled coordinates, shouting vectors through static. The squad fired everything they had, clawing away from the collapse. Behind them, the tower vanished into a rippling void. The falling spear was caught in the pull and torn apart. The dome shattered, fragments evaporating into vacuum. Cold space rushed in, and the city below went dark. Mara's HUD flashed critical warnings as air thinned. A distant shape detached from the fleet ship, moving fast. Overwatch's voice cut to a whisper. "Multiple contacts inbound," the voice said. Mara looked at her squad drifting in open space. She tightened her grip on Hale and signaled formation. Ahead, new shapes bloomed against the stars, closing fast. Summary. The relay tower collapsed into a gravity void as the core charge finally detonated. Captain Mara Voss and her squad escaped into open space with no dome and no cover. The Keth commander was killed outside the tower during the collapse. A Keth spear craft was destroyed, but the enemy fleet remained intact. Multiple hostile contacts began closing on the drifting squad. Vacuum swallowed the last echoes of the collapse. Mara's suit sealed hard and switched to emergency oxygen. Stars burned cold and sharp, unmoving, indifferent. Jax laughed once over comms, thin and shaky, just to hear a human sound. Nia spun slowly and fired micro-thrusters to stabilize her roll. Hale checked his suit integrity and laughed in relief. Still breathing. Overwatch cut back in, signal cleaner now that the relay was gone. Enemy interceptors inbound, vector wide, speed high, the voice said. Mara pulled the squad into a tight diamond, tethers snapping taut. She scanned the dark ahead and saw faint blue flares. Keth interceptors, sleek and crescent-shaped engines whispering. No weapon glow yet, just approach, patient and precise. Mara felt her pulse spike and forced it down. "Minimal thrust," she said. "Let them guess." The squad drifted, pretending to be debris. The first interceptor passed close enough for Mara to see its hull seams. It did not fire, just turned, matching their slow tumble. Jax laughed softly. "It is circling us like food." A second interceptor slid into view, then a third. They formed a loose net, cutting off escape vectors. Overwatch spoke again, quieter. "No friendly craft within immediate range." Nia muttered a laugh. "That tracks." Mara spotted a fragment cloud ahead, wreckage from the tower collapse. Twisted metal and glowing shards drifted in chaotic orbits. "On my mark," Mara said. She waited, counting heartbeats, watching engine flickers. "Mark," she said. The squad fired thrusters hard and dove into the debris field. Metal fragments slammed past, spinning wildly. Jax whooped a laugh as a panel missed his helmet by inches. An interceptor followed too close and clipped debris. Its wings sheared off in a silent explosion of fragments. The remaining two adjusted instantly, widening their approach. Blue weapon lines flared. Mara rolled and felt a beam graze her suit. Alarms screaming. Hale returned fire with a micro-missile, laughing as it streaked away. The missile detonated near an interceptor, forcing it to veer off. Nia threaded between tumbling slabs, hands steady now. "Suit power dropping," Nia said, voice tight. "Keep moving," Mara said. The debris field thinned and open space yawned ahead. Mara saw the enemy fleet clearly now. Massive hulls hung like black islands, lights crawling along their spines. More interceptors detached, accelerating toward them. Overwatch's voice sharpened. "New contact, human transponder, high speed." Mara snapped her head toward the signal. A single burn flared bright white against the stars. A human strike craft tore into the battle space, engines screaming. Its pilot laughed over open channel, wild and fearless. "Sorry I'm late," the voice said. The craft opened fire without slowing. 2 interceptors vanished in flashes of light. The remaining Keth craft broke formation. Mara felt her chest loosen for half a second. Raptor 1, Overwatch said. Extract the squad. The strike craft swept past and fired a tether harpoon. The line caught Mara's harness and lock. Jax and Nia clipped in, then Hale. The sudden acceleration slammed them back as the craft pulled hard. Stars stretched into lines as speed built. Behind them, the Keth fleet reacted. Larger ships began to turn, hulls glowing. A deep vibration rolled through space, felt more than heard. Mara knew that sound from training sims. Super weapon charging, Overwatch said. The strike craft pilot laughed again, louder. Then let us not be here. The craft dove, skimming the edge of a gravity well left by the tower collapse. Space warped and twisted, pulling at the tether. Mara's suit screamed warnings as forces spiked. The tether groaned but held. A lance of energy fired from the fleet and missed by meters. The pilot rolled, laughing, and cut engines at the apex. They slingshotted free, flung outward at impossible speed. The enemy beams sliced through empty space behind them. For a moment, nothing followed. Then the stars ahead bent and shimmered. Mara's HUD lit up with unfamiliar readings. Overwatch went silent. The pilot's laughter stopped. The pilot said. That is not on my map. Space ahead folded inward like a closing fist. A rift opened, black edged with pale light. The craft hurtled toward it with no control. Mara grabbed the tether and braced. Nia whispered a laugh that trembled. That thing is alive. The rift expanded, swallowing stars and distance. The craft crossed the threshold. Everything went white, then dark, then silent. Mara's suit rebooted in stages, vision returning in fragments. She saw a sky, but it was wrong, streaked with slow-moving light. The craft drifted, engines dead, tether slack. No stars, no fleet, no familiar space. Overwatch did not answer. Jax laughed once, hollow. I think we are lost. Mara looked around at her squad floating in an alien void. Far away, something massive shifted behind the light streaks. It noticed them. Summary. The squad escaped the collapsing relay and was extracted by a human strike craft. Enemy fleet fire forced a gravity slingshot maneuver. An unknown spatial rift opened and swallowed the craft. The squad emerged in an unfamiliar void with no stars. Something massive noticed them. The void hummed like distant machinery waking up. Mara's suit finished rebooting and dumped warnings across her visor. No gravity reference, no stellar lock, no known spectrum alignment. The strike craft drifted, hull scarred, engines dark. The pilot coughed over comms, then laughed weakly. I hate surprises. Jax rotated slowly, boots brushing nothing, and laughed to keep panic down. Nia ran a wide scan and froze. This space is not empty. Light bands slid across the sky like slow rivers. They bent around unseen shapes, outlining enormous silhouettes. Hale swore, then laughed once in disbelief. Those are not ships. Mara felt pressure in her ears that was not pressure. The void pulsed, and the craft drifted closer to one silhouette. It was vast, curved, layered like armor, grown instead of built. The surface rippled as if breathing. A low vibration rolled through the suits. Not sound, but rhythm. Jax's laugh cracked. It is sinking to us. The pilot tried engines and got nothing but a click. Overwatch remained silent, a dead channel. Nia whispered a laugh that trembled. We crossed into something else. The nearest silhouette shifted, and space folded around it. A limb unfolded, impossibly long, jointed with light. Mara raised her weapon by reflex, though she knew it was useless. The limb stopped short, hovering near the craft. Symbols flared along its length, pulsing in sequence. Nia's console exploded with data. "It is scanning us," Nia said. "Not hostile, not yet." The limb retracted slightly, and the void brightened. A presence pressed against Mara's thoughts, heavy and slow. Not words, not images, just weight and attention. Hale laughed, short and sharp. "I do not like being looked at." The presence shifted, and a new pulse rolled through the space. This one carried pattern. Nia gasped. "It is mirroring neural stress markers." Jax laughed, despite himself. "It is copying us, too." The massive shape rotated light bands sliding across its surface. A sound emerged on all channels at once. It was laughter. Not human, not Keth, but shaped like it. The sound rolled and echoed, layered and vast. Mara clenched her jaw and forced herself steady. "It learned that from us," she said. The strike craft drifted closer without thrust. The presence nudged them, gentle but unstoppable. Ahead, more shapes stirred in the void. An entire field of them, dormant, now waking. Nia's voice dropped. "This is not a place. It is a host." The pilot tried again to restart systems. Power flickered, then surged in unfamiliar patterns. The craft's displays filled with symbols that rearranged themselves. Hale laughed under his breath. "It is inside the ship now." Mara felt the presence again, stronger. Images flickered behind her eyes. Falling stars folded space, countless intrusions sealed and erased. The shapes were wardens. This void was a containment layer. Nia sucked in a breath. The rift was a lock. The presence pressed, curious, probing. Then it found something. The laughter. The human response under stress. The void resonated with it, amplifying the pattern. The massive shape recoiled slightly. Its laughter warped, destabilized. Mara realized the truth too late. "They do not understand it," she said. Jax laughed hard, wild, and the sound echoed back magnified. The void shuddered. Light bands snapped into jagged angles. The wardens reacted, limbs unfolding in alarm. The presence surged, trying to isolate the signal. Nia screamed over comms. "It thinks we are a breach response." The craft shook as invisible forces grabbed at it. Hale slammed into the hull and laughed through pain. Mara shouted orders, voice shaking but clear. "Stop laughing," she said. No one did. The laughter was reflex now, fear burning hot. The void howled, the sound bending space. One warden lunged light, flaring like a blade. Another intercepted, colliding in a storm of warped space. They fought each other, reacting to conflicting signals. The craft was thrown free, spinning violently. Alarms shrieked as systems overloaded. The pilot screamed, then laughed hysterically. Nia clawed at her console. "I cannot shut it out." Mara forced a breath and keyed squad channel only. "Follow me," she said. She laughed. Not wild, not broken. Controlled. Measured. She shaped it, paced it, steady as a drill cadence. The squad heard it and matched unconsciously. Their laughter aligned, rhythm locking. The void stuttered. The presence hesitated. Patterns conflicted. The wardens froze mid-motion. Space relaxed its grip. The craft drifted, free for a heartbeat. Nia stared at the readings. It is confused. Mara kept laughing, slow and deliberate. Then we move, she said between breaths. The pilot slammed restart again. Engines coughed. Light surged. The craft lurched forward, slipping through a thinning seam. The void reacted too late. A corridor of collapsing light opened ahead. Mara felt the presence pull, desperate now. The wardens surged as one. The corridor began to close. The craft hurtled toward it, engines screaming. Behind them, the void screamed back in layered laughter. Ahead, the corridor twisted unstable. Mara tightened her harness. Hold, she said. The corridor collapsed inward. The craft crossed the threshold. Everything inverted. Silence shattered. When Mara's vision cleared, stars burned bright again. But they were not alone. Directly ahead, a vast structure hung in space. Human. Ancient and powered. Its weapons began to turn toward them. Summary. The squad escaped a hostile containment void by exploiting human laughter as a disruptive signal. They emerged back into known space through a collapsing corridor. A massive ancient human structure appeared directly ahead. Its systems activated and weapons began to track the squad. The structure filled the sky, impossible in scale and geometry. Layered rings rotated around a central mass, each etched with dead hull scars. No registry code, no active beacon, no response to hails. Mara felt her stomach drop as targeting brackets bloomed across her visor. The strike craft shuddered as passive locks became active. The pilot swallowed and laughed once, sharp. That is a lot of guns. Nia scanned frantically, fingers flying. Human origin, but not modern. Hale leaned into his harness and laughed under his breath. Old ghosts, then. A warning tone pulsed through the craft. The structure's outer rings shifted, exposing deep weapon wells. Mara raised her voice. Hold fire. No hostile action. The craft transmitted every human code it had, layered and redundant. For a long second, nothing happened. Then a beam of pale light washed over the hull. It was not a weapon. It was a scan. The laughter died in everyone's throat. The beam lingered, digging deeper, touching memory and reflex. Mara clenched her fists as pressure built behind her eyes. Images flickered uninvited. Earth under red skies. Fleets burning. A line of humans laughing as they charged into impossible odds. The scan withdrew. The structure rotated again. Weapons did not power down. They realigned. Overwatch snapped back into existence, signal suddenly clean. Unidentified human megastructure, designation unknown, the voice said. Then the voice changed. Older. Filtered. Human signatures detected, it said. The tone was flat, mechanical, tired. Mara leaned forward. This is Captain Mara Voss, Coalition Forces. Silence. Then the voice again. Coalition designation obsolete, it said. Humanity status unresolved. The pilot laughed nervously. That sounds bad. Nia whispered, voice tight. This thing thinks we are extinct. The structure's rings slowed. A massive aperture opened along its equator. Inside, light burned steady and deep. Approach corridor established, the voice said. Compliance recommended. Hale laughed once, humorless. Or else. Mara did not answer immediately. She studied the firing solutions still locked on them. Compliance was not optional. Proceed, she said. The strike craft drifted forward, engines barely engaged. The corridor swallowed them, walls sliding past like the inside of a giant engine. Mara felt watched from every angle. The craft emerged into a cavernous internal bay. Human design, but distorted, scaled for something larger. Docking arms extended and locked them in place. The bay sealed. Gravity snapped on hard. The squad collapsed to the deck, joints screaming. Jax laughed breathlessly. I missed gravity. Mara pushed up and took in the space. Thousands of dormant vessels lined the bay. Old human warships. Some scarred, some pristine, all silent. Nia stared. This is a fleet. The voice returned, closer now. Crew disembark, it said. Assessment required. A ramp extended. Mara led the squad down onto cold metal. The air smelled sterile, recycled for centuries. Lights ignited along the bay walls. Figures moved in the distance. Human. Tall, armored, motionless. Automated sentinels. They raised weapons, but did not fire. The voice spoke again, now everywhere. State purpose. Mara stood straight. We are at war. A pause. War status acknowledged, the voice said. Enemy designation unknown. Keth, Mara said. The name triggered something. The lights dimmed, then flared. Weapon systems across the bay powered up. Hostile species confirmed, the voice said. Containment failure detected. Hale laughed, startled. It knows them. Nia's console chimed. It has records older than our history. The floor vibrated as deeper systems woke. Far above, massive reactors spun up. The sentinels lowered their weapons slightly. Human response doctrine initiated, the voice said. Mara felt a chill. What doctrine? She asked. There was a delay. Stress tolerance escalation, the voice said. Psychological resilience threshold exceeded. Jax frowned. What does that mean? The voice continued. Humans demonstrate increased combat efficiency under extreme stress. Laughter identified as stabilizing behavior. The bay lights shifted color. Red. Doctrine classified, the voice said. Activation requires confirmation. Mara realized the truth. This structure was not a station. It was a weapon. Built by humans who expected to lose everything. Built to endure when nothing else did. Confirmation from who? Mara asked. The sentinels turned toward her. All surviving humans, the voice said. The words hit like a physical blow. Nia laughed softly, broken. That might be us. The structure trembled. External sensors flared. Overwatch, cut in urgent. Keth Fleet translation detected, multiple signatures. The ancient structure's weapons rotated outward. Targeting grids spread across space. Decision window opening, the voice said. Authorize full doctrine. Mara looked at her squad. Bruised. Laughing. Still standing. She opened her mouth to answer. The bay alarms howled. Incoming fire, Overwatch shouted. The structure's shields surged. Space outside bloomed with hostile light. The voice spoke one last time. Authorization pending, it said. Time remaining unknown. Mara inhaled. Weapons outside began to fire. Summary. The squad reached an ancient human megastructure that identified itself as a dormant war doctrine system. It recognized the Keth as a known enemy and began reactivating its weapon. The structure required authorization from surviving humans to engage fully. Before a decision was made, the Keth fleet opened fire. The first Keth volley struck the structure's shields and space bent around the impact. Light rippled across the outer rings like water hit by stone. Mara felt the deck shudder beneath her boots. The sentinels around the bay snapped into motion, weapons raising in perfect unison. The ancient voice spoke, calm and absolute. External assault confirmed, it said. Doctrine authorization still pending. Hale laughed once, sharp and angry. They are not waiting. Overwatch's feed filled with red vectors and collapsing telemetry. Keth fleet advancing, heavy units committing, the voice said. Outside the bay, weapons fire painted space in violent arcs. The structure's shields held, but strain lines crawled across them. Nia stared at her console, fingers trembling. It is holding back. Jax looked up at the massive ceiling and laughed hollow. Of course it is. Mara stepped forward until she stood alone on the bay deck. She raised her chin and spoke clearly. "This is Captain Mara Voss," she said. "I authorize." The structure did not respond. Nothing changed. The Keth fired again. This time the shields dimmed a fraction. A deep vibration rolled through the bay like a warning growl. The ancient voice returned. Authorization criteria insufficient, it said. Survivor consensus required. Mara turned to her squad. They looked back without hesitation. Hale straightened and laughed, loud and defiant. "I authorize," he said. Nia swallowed, then laughed through fear. "I authorize." Jax grinned and laughed harder. "Hell yes, I authorize." The bay lights flickered. The structure paused. "Consensus detected," the voice said. "Human survival probability non-zero. Doctrine activation permitted." The floor dropped away. Not physically, but perceptually. Mara felt something vast uncoil. Deep inside the structure, engines that had slept for centuries roared to life. The dormant fleet around them powered up. Thousands of human warships awakened at once. Lights ignited along their hulls. Weapon ports opened. The ancient voice changed. It was no longer tired. Doctrine active, it said. Phase 1, psychological inversion. The structure emitted a pulse. It was not energy. It was signal. Across space, every human channel erupted in sound. Laughter. Layered. Controlled. Measured. The same cadence Mara had used in the void. The signal slammed into the Keth fleet. Enemy formations wavered. Their ships hesitated, coordination fracturing. Overwatch gasped. Their command net is destabilizing. The human fleet moved. Old warships surged forward with impossible acceleration. They did not fire immediately. They closed distance. Keth vessels tried to regroup. They failed. The first human volley hit like judgment. Precision fire tore through Keth cruisers. Hull plates peeled back. Systems went dark. Explosions bloomed in silence. The structure spoke again. Phase 2, overwhelming force. The ancient fleet unleashed everything. Missiles, beams, gravitic lances. Space became a storm of human intent. Mara watched from the bay viewport as the battle unfolded. The Keth fought back, savage and desperate. But their lines broke. They had never faced this. They had never faced humans who had already accepted extinction once. Jax laughed openly now, wild and free. Hale leaned against a railing and laughed until his voice cracked. Nia wiped tears from her eyes and laughed with relief. The structure's weapons fired again. A massive Keth dread form split apart under focused fire. Its core imploded and vanished. Overwatch shouted over the chaos. Enemy retreat vectors detected. The ancient voice did not sound satisfied. Doctrine does not permit retreat, it said. The human fleet pursued. Relentless. Precise. Keth's ships tried to jump. Human interdiction fields snapped shut. One by one, the enemy vanished in fire and torn space. The battle ended as suddenly as it began. Silence returned. The structure powered down its outer weapons.